Trophy hunting, a controversial practice. Trophy hunting is a controversial practice where animals are hunted for sport and their body parts, such as heads, horns, or hides, are kept as trophies. While proponents argue that it can generate revenue for conservation efforts and regulate wildlife populations, critics contend that it is unethical and can harm wildlife populations. Arguments in favor of trophy hunting. Revenue for conservation. Proponents argue that fees from trophy hunting can fund conservation efforts such as habitat protection and anti-poaching measures. Population management. In some cases, trophy hunting can help manage populations of certain species, preventing overpopulation and reducing conflict with humans. Arguments against trophy hunting. Ethical concerns. Many people view trophy hunting as cruel and inhumane, particularly when it involves endangered species. Impact on wildlife populations. Killing older, dominant males can disrupt social structures and harm breeding success. Perpetuating demand for wildlife products. Trophy hunting can fuel the demand for wildlife products, contributing to illegal poaching and wildlife trafficking. The debate continues. The debate over trophy hunting is complex, and there is no easy answer. It is essential to carefully consider the potential benefits and harms of this practice, and to implement strict regulations to ensure that it is conducted in a sustainable and ethical manner. Trophy hunting is widely considered a cruel hobby. Here are some of the reasons why. Infliction of pain and suffering. Trophy hunting often involves the use of methods that can inflict significant pain and suffering on animals. This includes the use of traditional hunting methods, such as bows and arrows, as well as modern firearms. Disruption of ecosystems. Killing specific individuals, especially dominant males or females, can disrupt the delicate balance of ecosystems. This can lead to population declines and other unintended consequences. Ethical concerns. Many people argue that it is unethical to kill animals for sport, especially when they are endangered or threatened species. Perpetuating demand for wildlife products. Trophy hunting can contribute to the demand for wildlife products, such as ivory and fur, which fuels illegal poaching and wildlife trafficking. While some argue that trophy hunting can generate revenue for conservation efforts, many experts believe that there are more ethical and effective ways to fund conservation initiatives. It's important to note that the practice of trophy hunting is highly controversial and subject to ongoing debate. The relationship between trophy hunting and species conservation is complex and often debated. Proponents of trophy hunting argue that it can be a valuable tool for conservation, generating revenue that can be used to fund anti-poaching efforts, habitat protection, and community development. They contend that it can help regulate wildlife populations and provide economic incentives for landowners to conserve wildlife. However, critics argue that trophy hunting can harm wildlife populations, particularly by targeting older, dominant males, which are crucial for breeding. They also point out that the revenue generated from trophy hunting may not always benefit local communities or conservation efforts. Additionally, it can perpetuate a demand for wildlife products, leading to illegal poaching and wildlife trafficking. The key to sustainable trophy hunting lies in strict regulation and ethical practices. It's crucial to ensure that hunting quotas are set based on scientific data, that the revenue generated is used transparently for conservation, and that the animals are hunted humanely. However, many conservationists and animal welfare advocates believe that trophy hunting, even when well regulated, is inherently unethical and that there are more sustainable and ethical ways to fund conservation efforts. Ultimately, the impact of trophy hunting on species conservation depends on various factors, including the specific species, the management practices in place, and the overall context of wildlife conservation in the region. Africa is the continent most commonly associated with trophy hunting, particularly countries like South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and Zambia. These countries have well-established hunting industries that offer trophy hunting packages for various game animals, including big game like lions, elephants, and buffalo. However, it's important to note that trophy hunting is a controversial practice, and there are ongoing debates about its ethical implications and impact on wildlife conservation. While some argue that it can generate revenue for conservation efforts, others contend that it can harm wildlife populations and perpetuate the demand for wildlife products. Trophy hunting is legal in certain countries and regions because it is regulated and managed under specific conditions. Here are the main reasons why trophy hunting is legal in some places. 1. Revenue for conservation. Funding conservation efforts. The fees generated from trophy hunting licenses can be used to fund conservation programs such as habitat protection, anti-poaching initiatives, and community development projects. Incentivizing conservation. Local communities may benefit economically from trophy hunting, which can incentivize them to protect wildlife and their habitats. 2. Population management. Controlling overpopulation. In some cases, trophy hunting can help control populations of certain species, preventing overgrazing and other negative impacts on ecosystems. Selective hunting. By targeting specific individuals, such as older or dominant males, hunters can help maintain healthy population structures. However, it's important to note that trophy hunting is a highly controversial practice, and there are many ethical concerns and environmental impacts associated with it. Strict regulations and ethical guidelines are necessary to ensure that trophy hunting is conducted sustainably and humanely. It's crucial to distinguish between legal, regulated trophy hunting and illegal poaching. Illegal poaching poses a significant threat to wildlife populations and can lead to the extinction of species. Trophy hunting, the selective hunting of wild animals for the purpose of obtaining a trophy, has a complex and often controversial impact on endangered species. Here's a breakdown of the key points. Negative impacts. Population decline. Trophy hunting directly reduces the population of targeted species, particularly when hunters focus on individuals with desirable traits, e.g., large horns, impressive manes. This can disrupt social structures, reduce genetic diversity, and hinder the species' ability to recover. Unnatural selection. The removal of prime breeding individuals can alter the natural selection process, potentially leading to the decline of desirable traits and weakening the gene pool. Increased vulnerability. Endangered species already face numerous threats, and trophy hunting can further jeopardize their survival by exacerbating existing pressures. Indirect effects. Trophy hunting can have indirect consequences, such as disrupting social groups, increasing stress levels, and making animals more vulnerable to other threats like poaching. Potential positive impacts, often debated. Conservation funding. Some argue that trophy hunting can generate revenue for conservation efforts, including anti-poaching patrols and habitat protection. However, the effectiveness of this approach is often debated, with concerns about corruption and whether the funds are actually used for conservation. Economic incentives. In some cases, trophy hunting can provide economic incentives for local communities to protect wildlife and their habitats. However, this requires careful management and equitable distribution of benefits to ensure that communities are truly invested in conservation. Ethical considerations. Animal welfare. Many people consider trophy hunting to be unethical, arguing that it inflicts unnecessary suffering on animals for the sake of human pleasure. Species preservation. The ethical dilemma also involves balancing the rights of individual animals against the need to conserve entire species. Conclusion. The impact of trophy hunting on endangered species is a complex issue with both potential risks and benefits. While some argue that it can contribute to conservation efforts, there are significant concerns about its negative impacts on population numbers, genetic diversity, and the overall vulnerability of endangered species. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to allow trophy hunting for a particular species must be based on careful scientific assessment, ethical considerations, and a thorough understanding of the potential consequences for both the species and the ecosystem as a whole. Illegal poaching, a threat to wildlife. Illegal poaching is the illegal hunting, trapping, or capturing of wild animals. It's a significant threat to biodiversity and the global ecosystem. Poachers often target specific species for their valuable body parts, such as ivory. Elephants are poached for their ivory tusks. Rhino horn. Rhinos are poached for their horns, which are used in traditional Chinese medicine. Tiger parts. Tigers are poached for their skins, bones, and other body parts, used in traditional medicine and as status symbols. Pangolin scales. Pangolins, the world's most trafficked mammal, are poached for their scales, which are used in traditional medicine. The impact of poaching. Population decline. Poaching can lead to significant declines in wildlife populations, pushing some species to the brink of extinction. Ecosystem disruption. The loss of key species can disrupt entire ecosystems and have cascading effects on other wildlife. Economic loss. Poaching undermines the economic benefits of wildlife tourism and sustainable use. Organized crime. Illegal wildlife trade is often linked to organized crime, fueling corruption and instability. Combating poaching. To combat poaching, governments, conservation organizations, and communities are working together to implement various strategies, strengthening law enforcement, increasing patrols, improving intelligence, and strengthening legal frameworks. Community engagement, empowering local communities to protect wildlife and report poaching activities. Reducing demand, educating consumers about the negative impacts of wildlife trade and promoting sustainable alternatives. International cooperation, collaborating with other countries to share information and coordinate efforts to combat wildlife crime. By taking a multifaceted approach, we can work together to protect wildlife and ensure a sustainable future for our planet. While both poaching and trophy hunting involve killing animals, there are crucial distinctions between the two. Poaching. Illegal. Poaching is the illegal killing or capture of wild animals, often in protected areas or without the necessary permits. Driven by profit. Poachers are typically motivated by financial gain, seeking to sell animal parts or products on the black market, e.g., ivory, rhino horn, bushmeat. Unsustainable. Poaching is often indiscriminate and unsustainable, targeting any animal of value, regardless of its age, sex, or population status. This can severely deplete wildlife populations and push endangered species towards extinction. No conservation benefit. Poaching provides no benefit to conservation efforts and actively undermines them by depleting wildlife populations and disrupting ecosystems. Trophy hunting. Legal in some areas. Trophy hunting is the legal hunting of wild animals for the purpose of obtaining a trophy, such as a head, horns, or hide. It is allowed in certain areas with specific permits and quotas. Selective. Trophy hunters typically target mature, male animals with desirable traits, e.g., large horns, impressive manes. Potential for conservation funding. Proponents argue that trophy hunting can generate revenue for conservation efforts, including anti-poaching patrols and habitat protection. However, this is often debated, with concerns about corruption and whether funds are actually used for conservation. Controversial. Trophy hunting is highly controversial, with ethical concerns about animal welfare and its impact on endangered species. International organizations play a crucial role in addressing both trophy hunting and illegal poaching, though their approaches and focuses differ. Here's a breakdown. Trophy hunting. CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. CITES is a key international agreement that regulates the trade in endangered species, including trophies. It lists species in 3 appendices, with varying levels of trade restrictions. CITES helps monitor and control the trade in trophies, aiming to ensure it's sustainable and doesn't threaten the survival of species. IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. The IUCN assesses the conservation status of species and provides scientific information to guide conservation decisions. Their red list of threatened species helps identify species that may be vulnerable to trophy hunting and need stricter protection. Organizations like WWF, Humane Society International, and Born Free. These NGOs advocate for stricter regulations on trophy hunting, raise public awareness about its potential negative impacts, and often work to protect endangered species in the field. Illegal poaching. Interpol. This international police organization facilitates cross-border cooperation in combating wildlife crime, including poaching and illegal trade. They help share information, coordinate investigations, and apprehend poachers and traffickers. UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. UNODC works to combat transnational organized crime, including wildlife trafficking. They provide assistance to countries in strengthening their legislation, law enforcement, and judicial systems to address poaching and illegal trade. World Customs Organization. This organization helps coordinate efforts to combat the illegal trade in wildlife products across borders. They work to improve customs controls, detect illegal shipments, and share information among countries. Organizations like TRFIC and Wildlife Conservation Society. These NGOs monitor wildlife trade, conduct research on poaching and trafficking networks, and provide support to law enforcement agencies in combating wildlife crime. Overall role of international organizations. Setting standards and guidelines. International organizations help develop international agreements, standards, and guidelines related to wildlife conservation and trade. Monitoring and enforcement. They monitor wildlife populations, track illegal trade, and support enforcement efforts to combat poaching and trafficking. Capacity building. They provide training and resources to countries to strengthen their capacity to protect wildlife and combat wildlife crime. Raising awareness. They raise public awareness about the threats to endangered species and the importance of conservation. Facilitating cooperation. They facilitate international cooperation among governments, law enforcement agencies, and NGOs to address these complex issues. It's important to note that the effectiveness of international organizations varies, and challenges remain in addressing both trophy hunting and illegal poaching. However, their efforts are essential in protecting endangered species and preserving biodiversity worldwide. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on my latest content.